Well, good morning. I'd like to go ahead and call this Veterinary Medical Board meeting Friday, October 23rd. I'd like to call it to order, and we'll start with establishing quorum.
Ms. Bowler she is running late, so she's absent right now. Dr. Bradbury.
Here. Sorry.
Ms. Loredo. Ms. Loredo. Ms. Loredo. Ms. Loredo, you're muted. Are you here? Okay,
this is the moderator. Would you like me to unmute her microphone?
Sure. Ms. Loredo, are you with us? Ms. Loredo?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Nunez.
That was quite an entrance, Jennifer.
Ms. Prado.
Here.
Dr. Solicito.
Here.
Ms. Yanis is absent. Dr. Noland.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is the update, discussion, and action of the board, potential
Okay, I think you cut out Dr. Noland, but Dr. Bradbury and Dr. Nunez, are you able to start presenting on agenda item 12?
Is Dr. Bradbury on?
Dr. Bradbury?
I don't see her.
I think she dropped off. I think this is going to be interesting. Also, Jeff, can you screen share so that you can show their report, I'm assuming?
I sure can. Moderator, can you turn over presenter role, please?
Yeah, let me pass that over.
Mark, would you be able to start without Christina, or do you want to wait and see if she can rejoin?
She was, well, the plan was for her to present it. Well,
okay.
I can.
Perhaps we can go on to another agenda item.
This is the moderator. Christina's rejoined, but WebEx is lagging a little bit. I'm promoting her to a panelist, so give me just 1 second while I try to get her in.
So just as a brief introduction, this was our strategic plan that, if you recall, we did that at the end of 2019. Now coordinated through the DCA headquarters, and it resulted in a rather lengthy strategic plan that had lots of very lofty goals, but it was thought that some of the goals were a little bit repetitive and needed to be trimmed down a little bit. Also, we had a little thing called COVID-19 happen that changed everything. So in light of that, we also kept in mind what priorities would be moving forward in the new world. One thing that it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because it was a little bit difficult to remember exactly what the intention was of the goal. It definitely was a lot of work. But the other thing that was impressive was, even though it was somewhat lengthy and nebulous, Jessica and her team took it and ran. And here we are at 10 months into 2020, and I will say that a lot of these goals are already achieved by a great staff. So you all probably have an attachment in today's agenda, the strategic plan, and there's 6 goals: enforcement, licensing, and examinations, customer service and administration, legislation and regulation, and outreaches. The last 2 ones, the inspection program, and is she here yet? So
It looks like she just joined.
Okay.
Dr. Bradbury?
It's all done. You can move on to the next item.
Great. Moving on. Everybody, we'll just adopt this and we're done. All right.
It's all did a great job.
Oh, good. Where were you, Mark? Do you want me to pick up or do you want to keep going? It doesn't.
I just kind of gave a little bit of background of what the purpose of it was. Just sort of trim down the goals that we made last year. Reorganize them, reprioritize them. I also gave kudos to the staff because many of the goals have already been achieved.
Oh, great. Great.
And so we can start on the goal 1. That's where we're at.
Okay. All right. I know that you already gave them kudos, but we have to all say it ourselves. No, seriously, when Mark and I started working on this, it made it a lot easier because at the meeting, the July meeting, they were already in the meeting before that, they were already working on these strategic goals and citing them in each of their actions that they were doing. And so that actually helped us to even group them together better as well, because some of them, they were doing one action and it was basically, 3 different goals were cited on it, which told us that goal probably could go together. So that was very helpful. I also wanted to thank Jessica. Thank you for being smart enough to put this in a table side by side. I had 2 separate documents because I was like, how do I, we go back and forth. Well, you put the 2 separate documents side by side. But Jessica, thank you last minute for doing this. I know you had a lot of other things on your desk to do, and I apologize for sending that to you the last minute. So as always, great job. Okay, so we did this strategic plan meeting, and it went well. We had had lofty ideals, but we really didn't pare down things the way we wanted to, as Mark mentioned, and we wanted to. I think what was tasked to us was to make this a more effective tool for us, as well as have appropriate expectations about what we can and can't accomplish. That being said, the way that Jessica's been managing things, it seems like some of these things have already been accomplished. So initially, I was trying to limit each of these sections to 4 or 5 goals, and I think that's was sort of the plan, but we kept some of these on here because we're already doing them. And if we can meet our goals, that's always a good thing. And why not keep it on there? So with that, the table, as you can see on the left, are the original item numbers on the list that we had. I don't know, do you guys have that list? Should we, or I guess it doesn't really matter too much, but there were quite a few in each section. So enforcement, for example, I think had 14 originally. So going through this, the other thing, so on the left are the old ones, on the right are kind of the new proposed wording and a little bit of explanation. I learned during the last couple days that this is really meant to have a basic goal. The statements that we write here are not meant to have all of the, by doing this and working on that, achieving X goal. It is instead just supposed to have the goal. And then there's going to be another meeting, it sounds like, and or, kind of document that we produce on how we're going to do things. So that's where, for example, on 1.1, it has what our goal is, and then underneath that, the how. But that how doesn't have to appear in the final document of the strategic plan. Is that correct, Jessica?
Yeah, let me just clarify really quickly. So the strategic plan from the board is really supposed to have the overall objectives that you want the staff to complete over the next 4 years. So you guys tell us the objectives, and then that goes into the strategic plan, and then staff and I meet with Solid, and we create what's called an action plan. And the action plan are the specifics of how we are going to implement your objective. And so a lot of times when we are going through the strategic plan, it looks like a lot of the how was in the strategic plan. We just want to know what your objective is, and then we will tell you the how of how we think we can implement it in the most efficient way possible. And so when you look at this table, there's some in there where it says the how, because you guys have already told us exactly how you want us to do that. And so we showed you, it's not going to be a part of the actual objective, but we're showing you that we understand that this is part of the how that you want us to achieve that objective. On the other ones where there's not a how, our staff is still going to meet and determine exactly how to do that. We're going to set a timeline over the next 4 years to accomplish those goals. And then we will take that action plan back to you so you can see it and then report on it regularly so you see that we're on track. So just to clarify, the how that you see now are hows based on some other objectives that you have created in the original draft plan, but that's not going to be the only way that we're going to achieve it. We think that we can come up with some other specific actions to achieve the goal as well. So like I said, we just need the overall objective from the board, and then our team will meet with Solid and create the actions and then report back to the board.
Thank you. That helps a lot. Yeah, so this was just so that you guys all knew that we...
The other thing I add to what Jessica just said was, if you pay attention to the administrative reports later on in the agenda, you may have noticed they started to put strategic plan objective numbers by their achievements, just to refer back to how it applies to the goals that we made. So now you know what they're there for.
Okay. All right. So yes. So the hows, it's really there so that it doesn't look like we've just ignored what we came, what our thoughts were on it. I think we wanted to make sure that the whole board understood that we're not dumping those ideas. It's just that that's not part of the actual goal. All right. So with that, does anyone have questions about that to start? And then I can just go over sort of the plan. All right. Doesn't look like there's any questions. Okay. So the enforcement goals, the 1.1 is clearly important to streamline the enforcement process, which would shorten the cycle time, or 2, shorten the cycle time, expedite consumer protection, and lower costs. So that incorporates a number of our previous plans, the 1.1, 1.10, and 1.11. And then, do you want me to go over them step by step? Yes, Jamie.
Well, I'm not sure we need to go over them step by step unless I think we've all looked at them, but it might be good at least to show the public if they haven't had a chance to take a look at this. But one thing that I would like to stress, and I think this is a Jessica question, for a goal to be a very good goal, it has to have some measurability. And so what I'm hearing Jessica say is she and her team will go meet with Solid and come up with a actual number. We're going to shorten the cycle time by X number of days, or we're going to try to reduce the cycle time by 10%. So is that correct, Jessica? In other words, it's your job to come up with to make these measurable and trackable, et cetera.
Yeah, so that's also part of the action plan. It goes into a chart with the objective overhead and then all the actions with the dates assigned and the dates that we want to accomplish the objective by, and also who's assigned to it. And then we also discuss what does that look like? How can we measure the success of this specific goal?
Okay. And can I also ask you, did you have any issues with the proposed language? It looks like we brought down, I think we had, 64? I can't remember, 67? And now these are 39 sub-goals. So that's a lot better than what we started with, right? But is that pulling it down enough, I guess? Is this a workable estimate?
I had gotten it down to 24, but it meant that we got rid of some of the things that we've already done, and there's no point in that. So
no point in that. Yes. Okay. I think that you've done excellent. You and Mark have done an excellent job of really trying to consolidate this list to make it a little more clear, and I think it's great. And I read through it and didn't have any issues with it, except for the measurability, the ability to actually develop a plan. And Jessica made it very clear that that's going to be her team's job. So that helps quite a bit. That was my only concern with the document was, well, where are the measurable, outcomes?
Yeah, to address that, the action plan that comes out as strategic goal is not a new thing. We did it last time. But then after that, it's kind of almost all by the wayside. We didn't know until we in the strategic plan. But I think what made the difference this time is the notations and the looking at the administrative reports. I think that really brings back every board meeting where our strategic goals were. So that's going to help out a lot with accountability.
I think the ability of you and Christina to really consolidate this will help the staff when they're actually calling out what strategic sub-goal they're working on and what, so I think it's going to be very helpful. I think it's a great tool to help the board move forward in achieving our goals. I think it's well done.
And it's a good thing we didn't bail by the hour because I think 50% of the time was working and 50% of the time was gossiping.
We're catching up with one another, yes. Maybe we should just talk about the things we're taking out briefly and make sure that we're all okay with that. Jessica has scrolled down here to the vaccine 1.7, the vaccine practice regulation standards, the objective that we had to review the effectiveness of them, and we took that out. Jessica has some help with the wording here, and that they're still, moving through the rulemaking process, and so I had just recommended removing it and waiting, but I think the plan of putting it on the next strategic plan makes sense too. So I think we'll, if that's okay with everybody, I think we'll move that to the next cycle. All right. And then again, down at the bottom, she put where the old, if one of the old objectives is in the list, where you can find it. So that's what that says there. And then the 2.6, determine the feasibility of limited liabilities of shelter MGLs to ensure compliance with the minimum standards. We took that out because, as you can see, the shelter minimum standards are still moving through the rulemaking process, and again, putting that on the next strategic plan would make sense. Under customer service, there was nothing that we removed here. Nothing. We ended up with a lot of legislative things, but that was mainly because it's already, a lot of them were already in the process, so we just kept them there. And yeah, I think that was it for the removals. So,
Dr.
yeah.
I just have a clarification. On page 2, where item 2.3, what does increase to access to veterinary care allude to? Is it for the licensing part?
No, my understanding of it, and anybody can fill me or jump into, but my understanding is that one of our mandates or objectives is to increase access for the consumers to veterinary care. And some of the things that are blocking that are the ability of other people from other states and places to come in and get a license and the time that takes. So anything that increases the number of veterinarians and the access for people is, I think, what we're talking about here. But if anybody else has something to add, let me know.
So it's more of like broadening the availability, like of
increasing
veterinary.
Increasing veterinarians more through evaluating licensing and examination.
And just like that doesn't mean that we don't want to increase the access in other ways. It's just that these were more achievable goals that we could basically have some measure of what we were doing. But I think that that's not the only thing that we want to do as a board. It's just those were some very obvious things that we could do and things that we could improve on. But I think overall, and I think this came up yesterday, even with the telemedicine about increasing access, I think overall that's going to be a broader theme. My guess is over time is to do what we can to try and consider all aspects of increasing access.
I'm just thinking that for it to be measurable, wouldn't it be much better to be more specific about the increasing the workforce, rather than putting in a very broad goal for access to veterinary care?
So, Dr. Solacito, can I jump in and say something? If you look on the left side, you'll see that there are three sub-goals that are very specific. They're talking about specific actions. And if you look back at yesterday, where we actually had the test itself looked at and evaluated and have discovered that it is a unnecessary barrier to licensure, that didn't fall within those three very specific subgroups. but it does fall within 2.3 on the right side, increasing the access to appropriate veterinary care. So I think one of the reasons to make it more broad is because we will do things over the next 5 years, I think, that help to do that broad category. And then Jessica and her team will come along and take care of those. They will help to determine an action plan and action items that are much more specific, like you're saying. So I think that the reason why it's such a broad category, an example of the helpfulness of that is yesterday's discussion on the test itself and whether we need it, which wasn't really, we never even thought about that 3 or 4 months ago when we did our strategic plan. It wasn't one of our 3 very specific ideas that we thought about. Does that make sense? So there's a kind of a reason to keep it broad. The danger, as you know, as people know, is that can we get something done with such a broad category, right? Is there enough guidance and direction to the staff of the board so that we actually do something? So I think that means we have to keep kind of looking at these every year, and we keep, and that's what's so great about Jessica and the team adding these numbers into their reports. So if they accomplish something and they're reporting it to us, let's say something that has to do with hospital inspections, they will report that number and they will say this directive that we're doing right now is to achieve goal number 2.3 or whatever it is. So that'll help us to kind of know that what they're doing to hone in and focus on an action plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Go ahead, Dr.
I realize that there are more ways to achieve that goal of increasing access than by increasing the workforce. But the other thing that we have to keep in mind is what our jurisdiction is, what we can do. Although we would love to solve all the problems in the world, we're kind of limited to we oversee the practice of veterinary medicine in California. But one thing we can do is work with our stakeholders, our partners like CVMA, the humane organizations, universities, and so forth. This has to be really restricted to what our task is as the veterinary medical board. But you're right, there's other things that can achieve that goal, but this is what the board can do for it.
Okay, so I guess my understanding is that this is just a starting point for further identification of specific goals. Basically, this is like an overarching goal that is going to be supported by the specific goals to be set by Jessica and her team. Thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
It wasn't really clear to me until towards the end of writing this either. I thought we had to be more specific too. So, because all of these were kind of in there, but after Jessica explained it to me, it made sense that we wanted to have a broader goal, and then the specifics sort of are worked out. And Jamie, thank you. That was a really great example of how being more specific would not be necessarily to our benefit in this particular document, but they're really good questions. Anyway, anybody else with questions, concerns, additions?
I would say a pretty unique observation was back in 2019, telemedicine really wasn't part of the discussion of goals when we make the strategic plan, and now it's really high up there with what things we're talking about. So things can change on a dime in anything.
I think the other thing might be, is it 6.2, Jessica? I'm sorry, I don't know. I can't have this the document up on my screen at the same time. I'm still not that technically savvy. That's how I ended up being bumped out of the meeting. Yes, so we should probably talk about this. We had originally said that we wanted to increase the number of inspections to meet the statutory mandate that was given to us. and that seemed kind of straightforward, except for we were coming up with ways of how to streamline the process and all of that to do that. But after discussion, it became clear that this may not even be a feasible number. And so the suggestion was made to perhaps change this to look at that to see if it's even a reasonable and feasible mandate. And so that did change. And I just wondered if anyone had any questions about that, or were you okay with us leaving it like that?
I really understand the drive behind that. I do find that it's problematic to evaluate the feasibility of anything. We're so busy trying to just accomplish it. So spending more time to evaluate the feasibility of accomplishing it is a big bite, in my opinion. So I understand the reasoning behind it. It's just not sure that's a goal that's going to have a high priority. I think the higher priority is to continue with hospital inspections.
So I'm just going to jump in. We will continue with hospital inspections. I don't think that needs to be a goal, because that's just an everyday thing that we're working toward. But we also do need to streamline the process, which our team is working on doing. But that 20% mandate is something that the board had requested, making it a mandate, where before it was to try do everything reasonable to achieve it. And I think the thought at the time was that by making a mandate, we'll get staff to fulfill the mandate. Number one, I think that the staff that we got wasn't sufficient to complete the inspections from start to finish. And I think that there wasn't any real consideration of what goes into completing an inspection. There was a point where we were sending out just assigning inspections. They were going out and being performed, but then we didn't have the staff to review the inspection reports after they were coming back, which resulted in them sitting in a drawer for a year or two before our staff could actually get to them. Even before that was happening, the board has never even come close to that 20% mandate. And so I think that there needs to be some kind of evaluation of where the 20% number came from, because I've heard a lot of different scenarios of how it used to be a 5% and then a 10%, and then they wanted to increase it because they were concerned that not enough people were being inspected. So I think that us continuously trying to throw resources out to try to just perform the inspections but not be able to follow up with those inspections to make sure that compliance was eventually made, I think is really important to ensure that we have a realistic goal here. And I think that if we are able to evaluate that and do that research, which I will do, then we can go back to the legislature if we feel that there's a more realistic inspection rate. Then we can ask during a sunset report to lower that mandate or change the wording of it.
So I'll remind everyone that I don't believe that our hospital inspections are necessarily regulated to be exactly the way they are now. And so I had the idea last spring that another way to actually make this more streamlined is to change the inspection process so it's a spot inspection, much more focused, much shorter, but not as thorough, but also more keep it as educational, as helpful as it has been, and really change the whole process so that we could do 20%, because the time that it takes for each one would be very different. And the consequences and results might also be different. Does that make sense? So I think there are other ways to streamline this process besides reducing the mandate of 20%.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that because you were talking, when you look at the inspection checklist that they have, if they essentially have every single requirement that the inspectors are checking for. And so you had talked about reducing that checklist for the first time inspections, and they will inspect a certain portion of that checklist, correct? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
The idea that is that you could do 20% of the inspection list, or you could even be more creative than that. In other words, you could send to certain hospitals, please take a picture of this, this, and this, and show this, and respond, and then we'll have the inspector come out for a 15-minute stop. I mean, in other words, we're all really set on this kind of hospital inspection. Somebody goes out, does this, but touching a hospital in different ways. For instance, taking pictures of your license that's displayed, your signage of hours open, the signage of what happens on an emergency basis. Maybe just that for all of the new hospitals, just to say, okay, show a picture, a time-dated picture, and send it to us, and that will help us to educate them as to what they need. It will also be an inspection. So I think there's more creative ways than just kind of sticking with the traditional go in person to the hospital. There needs to be some of those, and I think anybody that has probably a complaint, we probably need to go ahead and do it that way. But I think there are other ways that would document us inspecting, but that would be much more streamlined, and it would still benefit the premises and the hospital.
Yeah, I think what we're beginning to do is work on a strategic plan instead of presenting the strategic plan, which is what this agenda item is. But really good thoughts. I wonder if we should consider having a task to the MDC to evaluate those specific ideas.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Is that a motion, or is that something you want to just make a note of? So we're going to direct the staff to send this to the MDC to actually explore possibilities of.
We already passed the agenda item for tasks for the MDC. So we can do it after we finish presenting.
I think you can task anything in the MDC throughout the entire meeting. You don't have to wait for the MDC report.
Just have to tell Jessica. She makes it happen.
All right.
Okay. Any other? Sorry, I didn't mean to get off. We got off topic pretty aggressively. Sorry about that. But any other questions about this? I'd love to entertain a motion to accept these amendments to this strategic document. I think they're really well done. Thank you both for working hard on them. And I'll make a motion. I'd like to motion that we accept this amended document for our strategic goal planning document.
Second the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion by board members? I don't think Kathy's joined us yet, has she? So, moderator, would you open this item up then for public questions or discussion?
All right, give me just 1 second while I get the Q&A feature open. At the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll pause a moment now to give the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Q&A feature is now closed.
I just have a quick technical question. As far as attendees, I was kind of looking to see who was in the audience, and my screen says 0 display. Is that what it's supposed to say? Right?
So there should be an option to view all attendees, and then it'll list that there's 13 in there.
Yeah. but I can't view them for some reason. I don't know. And I asked that if they're trying to say something, but maybe they can't. But go on.
We're watching that as well.
There's so much we don't know, right, Mark?
I know. I keep clicking the view and
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on, excuse me, to item number 13 on the agenda, which is the President's report.
Well,
We have to vote.
We have to vote on
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, we have to vote. My apologies. Darn, I was going to hurry up and get done. Okay, call for the vote.
Ms. Bowler is still absent. Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Ms. Loredo.
Yes.
Dr. Nunez.
Yes.
Ms. Prado.
Yes.
Dr. Solacito.
Yes.
Ms. Llanes is absent. Dr. Nolan.
Yes, and I told Christina I was going to forget that one at least once before the end of this meeting, so there you go. I just did it.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Do we need to make a motion to move those ideas for hospital inspection to NBC?
No, I think we just have to tell Jessica to do that.
Okay, Jessica, do that.
Done.
Excellent. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move to item number 13, which is the President's report. So since our last meeting on the July 23rd, on the 31st of July, Jessica, myself, Tara, Kathy Bowler had a teleconference with Susan Riggs and Brandy Kunsel, who are members or stakeholders in the telemedicine issue topic. And we met with Carrie Holmes of the DCA and had a very good discussion about telemedicine and its effect on equity. They presented several cases or instances in which telemedicine was helping during this COVID-19 relaxation of some of our regulations, and they encourage us to consider permanently changing some of the way we handle telemedicine. And then on August, I thought it was a very helpful discussion. I think I felt like we spent more time just listening, and we didn't really have a two-way discussion about some of those issues, but I think the idea was for us to actually listen and to try to glean more information, and so I think it went very well. On August 13th, we had the APR hearing where you were all present, so you don't need to mention much about that. On August 14th, we did have a discussion with Patrick Lee and Christina DeCaro after the SB 1347 amendments that were made in the Senate B&P committee. Senator Galgiani's bill, the shelter medicine bill, if you'll remember that one. And Val Fenstermaker was there, Kathy Bowler, Tara, Jessica, and myself, and we had a discussion about how we could move forward working with the senator and her staff to try to make this bill palatable for everyone. And unfortunately, we didn't come up with any good ideas, and it did not move forward. She did kill the bill. But we're hoping next year we'll have an opportunity to work with someone in the legislature with regards to the shelter medicine and the issues that we have there. On August 18th, we had a Veterinary Medical Board Executive Leadership meeting, which is with Jessica, Kathy, and myself. And I think it's very similar to what Jessica does with each of you. She just gives us an update on what the staff is working on and how things are going, and keeping us apprised of any more contact she gets from stakeholders on different issues. So it's very similar to the one-on-one meetings that she has with all of you folks. And I think Jessica and I had another update on the 28th. I can't remember what that one was about, unfortunately, but we've had a lot of interaction. September 15th, we had another executive leadership meeting, planning for this meeting. And then on Friday, October 9th, Jessica and I attended virtually the CVMA's Board of Governors meeting, and Jessica did a very good report on all of the bills and all the legislative efforts that have either moved forward or have died, and also updated them on many of the issues we're talking about today, including the feasibility of continuing with a state board exam, and shared with them some of the information she'd received on that issue. And they were very actually forthright in saying they felt that state board exam was no longer probably necessary or needed to maintain the excellent veterinary care that we have in California. They felt like the national board exam across the country had been very adequate for many years. There was also a very compelling report by the deans of both of the veterinary schools, and sharing with us what they were doing in these in pandemic times to continue the educational process of their students. And they also shared their concerns with the general health and welfare of their students and how stressed they are and what's going on, in their lives. And that was very compelling to hear, and made me very proud of Jessica and her team for the support. She received a lot of praise for the support that the Veterinary Medical Board has given to students, and a lot of, for instance, the question and answer on the website, and just trying to streamline their licensing process, et cetera. So they were all very complimentary of Jessica and the board. And then on Sunday, October 18th, we had another executive leadership meeting, again, preparing for this meeting, and just basically Jessica keeping us apprised of what was going on. So that's my board report. Any questions?
I just wanted to jump in and say that I don't know if all of you are aware, but it's Val Fenstermaker. It was her last Board of Governors meeting, and she is leaving CVMA, retiring on October 30th. And so I think that we just need to say a big thank you to all of the work that she has done and being able to collaborate with us on all issues. We may not always see eye to eye on it, but we've all had a good relationship with her, so we're able to have a good dialogue with CVMA, and I think that she's been so tremendous in her role, and she will definitely be missed. Dan Baxter is replacing her, and she's been working with him over the last month, so I'm looking forward to extending our relationship through Dan as well.
Excellent. I totally agree with Jessica. Val's been a tremendous, tremendously easy to work with, and has been really a collaborative person in the CVMA, and we look forward to working with Dan as well. Thank you for bringing that up, Jessica. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Oh, Christina.
I really have appreciated Val and her fairness and kind of logical approach, and being willing to work with us, and being willing to speak up. And I've really enjoyed working with her, and I am really sad that she's going, but happy for her to be retiring. So good luck, Val.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll go ahead and then move on to, I think, the next item, which is Jennifer.
We have to do public comment, sorry.
Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, so moderator, if you would please open up for public comment.
All right, at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the screen for your reference. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I will now pause a moment to give the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their request. Oh, actually, it looks like we do have one individual who's requested public comment. Individual identified as Valerie Fenstermaker. Apologies, give me 1 second while I find you in the attendee list. All right, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all those very nice comments. I have been to many, many veterinary medical board meetings, and right down to the wire, I'm still watching this one. But it's been a pleasure working with all of you as well, and I admire the great job that you all do. I know the enormous dedication it takes to be on the Veterinary Medical Board. It's a lot of work, and thank you so much. I will miss you all.
Well, we'll miss you too, Val. Thank you, Val.
I have to officially say my thanks to Val. Val, I cannot imagine PDMA without you. It's just you've accomplished so much, and you contributed greatly to field of veterinary medicine. Thank you thanks for all the memories for a good job. But I'm sure we'll see you around.
Mark.
We can't get rid of Dick Sullivan. We can't get rid of you.
Hope not. We don't want to get rid of her, ever. Thanks again, Val. Oh, and Catherine joined us. Good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now and ask the moderator. Oh, are there any other comments, moderator?
This is the moderator. It looks like there are no other requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right. And then can I get a quick mic check from Kathy?
Oh, good morning, and I apologize for getting late on the call in the meeting, but I'm here.
Great, thank you.
30 lashes.
Now we'll go ahead and move on to item number 14, which would be Jennifer Loredo's report, RVT report. Take it away, Jennifer.
All right, good morning, everyone. First thing I want to mention is last week was National Veterinary Technician Week, so happy Vet Tech Week to all the RVTs out there. I know it's pretty standard to celebrate the entire staff during Vet Tech Week, but congratulations to all the RVTs for making it that far. The first thing I have is the issue of foreign RVT graduate licensure. So as we know from the meetings this week, the MDC does have a subcommittee working on that. And additionally, as we heard from Nancy Gritman, there is basically a paid subcommittee of the AAVSB that I am on, and we are resuming meetings next week. So we're hoping to have some updates. At the last meeting I was able to attend, we were still on the information gathering stage, and I did miss one meeting that was during the annual conference. But I am hoping that with both of the subcommittees working on this, that we'll be able to make some progress with that issue. Another thing I'm going to be asking for an update is we had mentioned that there were some issues with getting the VTNE results, the pass rates by school published. And I know that there was a big report that was sent to us and there was a cost involved. And I'm just wondering, Jessica, do we have any updates with that? Have we made any progress?
No, unfortunately, there hasn't been. Sorry, I was getting everyone. There we go. Okay, unfortunately, there hasn't been much movement on this. The cost was pretty significant to pay for. But I do know with the work that we're doing with AAVSB, it's eventually going to, once we are able to get those scores automatically transmitted into our system by school, we'll be able to report at least for the pass rates of the schools in California, and we'll be able to pull that information out and post it on our website. But it's not something that we're giving up on. We're still working with AAVSB to try to provide that information to the RVT applicants.
Okay, thank you. The next thing that I have is the RVT fee increase, and as we've heard, we are still working on that. We're trying to make progress. The MDC is looking at options for maybe some tiered fees, and it's a slow process, but I don't want anyone to think that we have forgotten about that. We do still realize that the fees are quite a burden on RVTs, so that is still being addressed. Next thing I have is title protection, and the issue of name badges was brought up. So as we know, technician, registered veterinary technician is a title protected title, and it has been brought up by several that they think name badges should be required, and the board had covered that issue. I know I was new to the board the first time we covered it, but that might be something that we want to address at some point. The next one I have is, it was already mentioned in Dr. Nolan's report, but animal shelter issues. So we know that, the shelter bill was pulled for the year, but the issues are still there with the access for those smaller underserved shelters. And it's not an issue that's specific to RVTs, but it does impact RVTs. I know I was an RVT in a shelter for a very long time, and I was very fortunate that we had veterinarians and we had protocols and we had very good leadership. But there is a lot of, I won't say ambiguity, but I think that the language can be confusing to somebody who hasn't been looking at it for the past, 10 years like some of us have. And we started out with, I think our first strategic planning when I was on the board was extended duties for RVTs, and that was intended to help shelters specifically, and that just didn't go anywhere. We spent a lot of time working on that, and then it morphed into changing it to supervising duties of a veterinarian, and that didn't really change anything. We worked on the minimum shelter standards for quite a while, and we did finally move that forward, but there were obviously still some issues with some of these rural animal shelters that don't have a veterinarian, and that does impact the RVTs because an RVT in a shelter will be worried that they might do something that could cost them their license and be put into that position of having to make it something we need to address. I know that the bill was pulled, but that doesn't mean that the issues have gone away. So I don't know if anybody has any suggestions, some ways to have some resolution. And I know that it was mentioned in board meetings that there were things that I felt were really outside the purview of the board about tuition reimbursements for veterinarians who worked in shelters. I mean, the Veterinary Medical Board can't call the loan companies and ask them to reimburse people in shelters, but there needs to be some kind of resolution. And I know we have looked at this issue over and over and over, but the issue is still clearly there, and there are shelters that are having some issues. So if anybody has any fantastic suggestions, I'm open because I got nothing. Anyone? Crickets? Okay. So I want to put that out there. I don't know if that's something, we can reassign to the MDC. I know it's been back and forth between the board and the MDC, but it is still an issue that as well as the veterinary assistants and the consumers.
Christina. Sorry. So I agree. I was, and thanks for bringing that up, Jennifer. I really felt like the CVMA, the amendments that were made to that bill were something that was sort of a nice go-between with the, was it a limited premise license? And I don't know how that, I'm still not as familiar with the process of getting something like that sort of added in or started, how that goes. But I felt like we all kind of agreed that the amendments would be reasonable, and there was going to be we had talked about a fee waiver for those specific places. So I don't know if there's a way to do something with that, since we already have language that we all agreed on, and so that would just be my suggestion, is to sort of take what we've already worked on so far and do something with it, but I don't know the feasibility of that.
I was actually afraid to bring that up about altering the standards because it took us so long to push it through, but we all agree we need to do something because it can take years to find resolution, but right now there are animals in shelters and staff not knowing what they can legally do and animals needing care. So we need to do something. I was hoping somebody would have a brilliant idea, but I think you're right, Dr. Bradbury, that might be the way. I can hear everybody who worked on those shelter standards cringing right now, but that might actually be the direction we need to take.
And Dr. Solicito has her hand up.
I don't know if it's brilliant or what, but I actually think that we need to facilitate more conversations involving the actual shelter people, the vets and the RVTs in the conversations. What I do understand is that we have difficulty getting the shelter folks participate in organized veterinary medicine. It could be because of, the lack of understanding of what the value of their opinions are, to share, what the challenges they have. but there is such a disconnect between the shelter people and, I guess, organized veterinary leadership. And so I think a suggestion would be to create further outreach and encourage, have those standards that had been discussed be discussed amongst the shelter folks so that they could chime in. Because a lot of times things can be presented in a very, like philosophical way, but it does not really translate to the realities that are being experienced by the people at the shelter. So I guess if we already have those, guidelines identified, furthering conversations with the people, getting them to participate, in reviewing and furthering the discussion, maybe could lead us into establishing those standards as real standards. So that's just my opinion.
And Dr. Solicito, I am so happy to have another shelter, a shelter veterinarian on the board, but thank you so much for volunteering for that. That was you volunteering, correct? Yes, great. But I'm glad you mentioned that because there is a disconnect. There were so many conversations with, air quotes, shelter community, but it was the organized association that did not include all of the shelter personnel. And at the time I was a board member and working in a shelter, and the only reason I knew about it was from being on the board. So I was very adamant that certain portions of the bill were not acceptable. And that came from my experience of being line staff in the shelters and seeing the things that happen. And I think that hearing from more of the actual shelter personnel is very important because you're getting a very limited representation because not everybody's a joiner. When we're working, we're not able to go be a part of this. So I think that the outreach is a really good idea. And again, I'm very hesitant to even mention touching those standards that we're trying to push through, but that might need to happen. So again, and I'm sure I worked in a very, large facility that had, really great procedures, but we know that that's not always the case. Not every shelter even has a veterinarian. And I know how difficult it was for me to retain veterinary staff. When I would hire the RVTs, they would quit after a few months because I couldn't handle it. And unfortunately, that's the reality. So I think that's something that we need to not forget about and really focus on. And then the next thing I have was actually a question. Does anybody know what is going on with RVT schools and their attempt to continue the educational paths? We had heard from Dr. Nolan that the deans of the 2 veterinary schools in California had shared their plans, but I know a lot of RVT students are really impacted by this pandemic. A lot of schools are still online. I know personally I had to cancel any of my classes that had AVMA required hands-on tasks because I can't do those online. And there were some students 2 semesters ago who needed 1 class to graduate, and they're just kind of in limbo. And I'm just wondering if anybody knows what the other programs are doing to try to help these students. Does anybody have any? Yeah, no. So maybe in the comments somebody will have something. But I know that I just want to recognize that that's really been impactful. We already talked about having a shortage of RVTs and how challenging it is for licensure, and then this just, pandemic and harder. So students, we hear you guys, and we're trying. The last thing I have is something that is really, really important to me is I want to tell all of the RVTs, all of the veterinary assistants, all of the RVT students out there, you guys get involved. Your voices need to be heard. You've already heard some of us saying there is such a small representation. I'm very fortunate to be here getting to voice my opinions, but, and the veterinary assistants in California with the VA CSPs, there were more of us than there were veterinarians. So the support staff needs to have their voices heard. You guys join your associations. We have this unprecedented opportunity right now that everybody's virtual. You can chime into these meetings. Everybody makes fun of me. I like to have meetings playing in the background while I'm working because I'm weird. But you can do that right now. I know you can't always travel to Sacramento. We tend to have one meeting when we're in person in Southern California, but we're virtual now. So everybody can chime in, send emails, send letters. I know some people are very hesitant. Long before I was with the board, I sent a nasty email to the board because I disagreed with something, and they still let me sit here. So don't be afraid to get involved, to say something. But if your voice isn't heard, things are going to happen without you. You can see the world isn't stopping. We're still working. So please, please, please get involved. There's CARVTA, there's CVMA, there's NAVTA, there's your local associations. Please get involved and make your voices heard. And that's all I have. Does anybody have questions?
So we still have that nasty email on file, by the way, just in case you're wondering. Just a couple of quick points. That's a really good question. How are the RVT schools and programs doing? The board is mostly involved in regulating them, but since I know that CDMA is listening, I know that they do invite the deans of the vet schools to the board meetings. I wonder if that might be something to think about, inviting some representatives from the RVT programs to the board meetings. I know that there's a lot of them, so that would be a big expansion to a board meeting, but maybe a representative from all would be thought. Just CDMA if you're listening. And then we should add a strategic goal for Dr. Solicito to heal all the disconnect between the shelter community and this board, because that is a lofty goal that I'm sure that we will make everything well, Dr. Solicito. And just a really quick question. I don't know if you know, when COVID started, this is a bit off topic, we heard that there was all these adoptions and all the shelters were being cleared, and is that still true, or is there still a big shelter population now, or has COVID helped out with the number of shelter pets?
So how, I guess, we see it, the population that used to be taken into the shelters are still out there. Like there are still animals that are at risk, because the needs are still there. The reasons why animals end up in the shelter is more of because people, it's impacted by the situation that the community is in. So we're just looking for different ways on how to help them. And that's why a lot of the shelters have been looking into public-facing programs rather than waiting for all these animals to come into the shelter. Does that answer your question, Doc?
Well, are they still like at 100% capacity, or are they like at half capacity now, or so are those numbers kept?
Yeah, so what we've been identifying for years, even before COVID, is that all the shelters had been working over capacity. So what we're doing now is trying to stay within that capacity and collaborate with the community on how to handle the other portions that cannot be handled within the shelters.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Jennifer? Moderator, would you please open up for public comment or questions?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with the question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the screen for your reference. And in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll now pause a moment to give the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like we do have one individual who has requested public comment, Anita Levy. Anita, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me a moment to speak. I wanted to say thank you, Jennifer, for the shout out for CARPA and for NAPCA and for encouraging this community to participate more because, gosh, we definitely need more. So thank you for that, and thank you for your report. I wanted to mention, I'm not a representative of any vet tech programs, but I do work with someone who's going through her program right now. And there were just a few minimal hands-on sign-offs that she still needed in order to complete, which they're not able to do now because of COVID. And they have made arrangements. They reached out to their employment or their, in her case, it's her employment, but I guess it could also be her extern site to have those handled there. I'm not sure if that's, what everyone is doing, but I just wanted to give you that comment.
Thank you, Anita. I will definitely be asking my RVT program director about that.
Of course.
All right, this is the moderator. It looks like there are no other additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right, the Q&A panel is now closed.
Okay, we'll go ahead then and move on to agenda item number 15, which would be our reports from Kathy Bowler and Martin. Would anybody, did you guys hear that?
I did. It blank. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jamie? Okay, sorry. Oops. Jamie, I don't know. Can you still hear me? Sorry, guys. Are you ready?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, guys. Okay. Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for my tardiness this morning. I'll do the ICVA report. And for Dr. Solicito, I serve as the public member of the International Council of Veterinary Assessments, and it's a 13-member board of veterinarians and academics and specialists and regulators. And our recent meeting was, of course, virtual. It was in August. The ICVA board, like every other testing association and academic association, continues to make accommodations in the test-taking windows, of course, all year long due to the pandemic. Each testing window has been extended this year due to the problems created by the pandemic. But I'm happy to report that when I think all is said and done, I believe there will be no decline in the number of candidates testing this year, and the scores have even exceeded, at least for the April exam date, the scores in 2019. We're currently in the September to December window, which is usually a November to December window in normal years, to put that in perspective. One interesting thing that the board is engaged in, which I wanted to bring to our attention, is a foresighting project, working with the University of Houston, which has a renowned department with an MS degree in the science of foresight. I assume that most organizations, nonprofits, corporations, and whatnot utilize this type of forecasting and planning, but I'd never been involved in something like this, so it's been quite fascinating. Our collaboration began in January at our meeting in Atlanta, really to study the changing field of veterinary medicine and education, allowing for any number of external or internal influencers or disruptors. And little did we expect at the time that the worldwide pandemic was like knocking at our door, which has changed so much. But this has been a really fascinating team exercise in attempting to forecast and plan for the transformational change by analyzing rapid alterations in external environments in both veterinary education, assessments, practice, et cetera. And look at all the possibilities. And while we haven't finished it yet, I hope to update our board in January about the conclusions. This type of guided exercise really makes you look at all the future possibilities, alternatives, kind of implications across all stakeholder positions. So it's been really interesting. Like our board, the ICVA is beginning the process again of reviewing and modifying our strategic plan, which is done every 3 years. And then finally for ICVA, we brought on a new highly respected Chief Assessment Officer, Dr. Kent Hecker from the University of Calgary, who is the leader in research assessing the neural and behavioral correlates of learning and decision-making in all health profession education. So Dr. Hecker is going to improve the NAVLE while pursuing additional assessment methodologies other than multiple choice, while keeping it psychometrically sound, but we can utilize the different additional tools and technologies to perhaps better assess things like communication skills, which are so critical to the practice of veterinary medicine. And that's kind of it for ICVA, unless anyone has questions that I can give you. It doesn't look like any questions. Oh. Sorry.
On to the my portion of it. The one thing that's challenging Dr. Solicito is, as a new governor, understanding what all the letters mean. So the AAVSB is the American Association of Veterinary State Boards. That is an organization that exists to support regulatory bodies such as the California Veterinary Medical Board, includes all the state boards of the United States and Canada. And they offer programs, services to help these organizations achieve their goals. And there's a subcommittee that is called the American Association of Veterinary State Board Member and Program Services Shark Tank is what I think it should say, but it says Think Tank. Basically, we just kind of evaluate all the programs and see if there's any current trends for other services and programs that might be offered. I don't really have a report to get on that, mostly because we are having our meeting next Tuesday. So I will probably give you an update for the next board meeting, but just to let you know, the agenda for that is streamlining the NAVLE eligibility review and application process. We touched upon that a little bit earlier yesterday. Veterinary technicians levels of training, API data transfer update, license and discipline request and member boards updates, and race, and one of the key names of the program, Racetrack, upgrade response tests to keep track of CV out and so forth. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. I guess the last thing, the AAVSB also just had their virtual annual meeting, which every board member actually was invited to. I thought that was a very nice thing for AAVSB to offer at a very reasonable price registration for all the board members. I think it was like $250 or something like that. It was pretty fair. So hopefully all of you got an opportunity to listen to some of the presentations. I thought they were very good. There was a presentation on accountability. How do we measure our performance and how we're doing it? It's a really interesting talk. Telemedicine, of course, always a big subject. Wellness programs, especially during times of the pandemic and so forth. Kathy and I went into one private chat room. That wasn't very exciting. We tried to make it interesting, but it was great. Any questions?
I want to just add, just so we could get on the record, because I think we're really lucky, California. I'm also on that think tank with Mark. I'm the ICVA representative on it. So California is very well represented in the National Association. at a lot of levels. And of course, between Jennifer on her committee, Mark and I on ours, and Jamie with her involvement as the president, I think we are more represented on the national than we ever have been before. So I think that's a good thing.
And, you know, I forgot to mention it in my president's report, but I attended that conference as well virtually, and the telemedicine discussion board or topic was really good. And Christina, Dr. Bradbury was there too, and I think she and I both felt like that was really helpful to listen to more global perspectives on telemedicine.
All those videos are still live, I believe. For I did many of them as well, certainly the telemedicine. So particularly for Dr. Solicito, I think they're still available for each of the workshops that they did.
I do miss real in-person meetings. Hopefully I'll be back one day. The keen observer, you may notice that that is the regulatory bear we got from the Build-A-Bear factory in St. Louis. That's the last name was. There he is. I think I noticed the bear. I don't know if anyone else did.
Well, so any more questions for Kathy or Mark from the board? Yes, Christina.
You can always rely on me to have a question. I was that annoying student too. So thanks you guys for going to, or attending these meetings and participating, and you too, Jamie. It's a lot of time in addition to all the time that you're spending on this stuff here for the board. So I really do appreciate it. And even in the short time that I've been on the board, I've seen a ramp up of your guys' participation, and I am seeing the fruits of that with some of the information we're getting from it. The PAVE program, it sounds like, is going to be really useful. And then also, I think the sharing of information about enforcement actions against license holders in other states, that we're getting that database together and everything. And I can really see a lot of value in our participation in it. I also think that it's really helpful to get the perspective of other states and how they're doing things, because you don't know what you don't know, and it's we think we're really great ideas, but they have some ideas we never thought of, and so I really even having Canada participating, that was huge. I was like, wow, that's really neat. So thank you, Kathy and Mark, for donating your time and just all of what you're doing. I really appreciate it. It's funny, I'm looking at you in the little corner, so it looks weird. That's you and saying thank you. I did have this PAVE thing keeps coming up, and I don't fully understand what that is. So I wanted just to ask quickly about what that is. And I know it sounds like that's a similar program is being used to evaluate the RVT status and, for the British nurse, for example, the veterinary nurse. And then I also just wanted to make last comment, which is that Kathy, that was the description of the new leader. I don't remember if he was an executive officer or what, for the testing sounds amazing. This person who's doing that sort of research. So I'm excited to hear more about what he does with that whole service. But would you guys mind just explaining what PAVE is?
I can. I think if I just tell you what it stands for, you'll understand. It's the Program for the Assessment of Veterinary Education Equivalence. So they just take our standards and then compare them to whichever program they went through.
So that's great. Thank you. That does explain it. What we're kind of looking at is to potentially transition into using that program to evaluate reciprocity for other countries and states and that sort of thing. Is that kind of the thought that we're moving toward?
Yeah, basically, it's to make sure that they're getting equivalent education. So it's actually comparing curriculums and seeing what the different tasks are. And there's a lot that goes into it, but we call it PAVE because that's such a long name.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and ask the moderator to open item 15 up for public comment or questions.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference. And in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll now pause a moment to give the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Q&A panel is now closed.
Okay, we are up against a hard closed session time of 11 o'clock this morning, board members and public.
Sorry, to clarify, it's not closed session at 11. We start a petition hearing at 11, which is open to the public.
I'm sorry. We do have a, am I correct, Jessica, in saying we have, definitely have to?
Right, yes. So we have petition hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So having said that, and items 16A through G, I thought were very well written. I think the reports are very thorough and clear. And so in the interest of time, instead of actually reading through each one of them, I would like to ask the board members if they have any specific items that they would like to discuss. And we can start with the executive report for administration. So I would ask the board members if they have anything on administration they would like to discuss.
I left the little hand thing. I'll find it again.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
This is the moderator. I have Bikram Dhaliwal on the line. However, I'm unable to promote him up to a panelist if he needed to speak on 16A. Bikram, if you could please re-log back into the meeting and make sure you're clicking that Join Now button versus Join by Browser. Otherwise, I can't promote you.
Bikram is from our budget office, and he was to present on the budget information. But we can result to if anyone has any questions regarding the budget, then he can answer them.
Okay, so we're back to board members. Any questions on the administrative report? Kathy?
Actually, these are a couple of questions. I don't think they're super hard questions on the budget or comments. On the fingerprint reports, and Jessica, you'll probably know this, I know we've been playing catch up a little bit, and so we have a deficit there. Do you expect that in future years, for at least the next couple of years, there's still going to continue to be a deficit, or are we adjusting our budget appropriately going forward?
Moderator, would you be able to share presenter roles so I can pull up so all the board members know what we're looking at?
Oh, sorry about that.
Thank you. 1 second. Okay, let me pull it up. So under the fingerprint reports, you're going to see scheduled reimbursements. These are things that are not typically planned for, which is what you're seeing here under the red. So it's always going to show under this section, similar to the other that is our cost recovery and citations that we issue that are going to be under here. So those are always things that are going to show up under here. That doesn't necessarily mean we're doing something wrong. That's for the fingerprints, the money, it goes from our licensees. It goes into, we collect the funds, but then we have a transfer to DOJ and FBI, and so they pull those funds. So that has actually nothing to do with our budget. So, but it shows up here because it's money that we're taking in, but then we disperse it. But it's always going to be in the red in parentheses under here.
Okay, got it. And then the other thing that I thought was great was the savings in the AG's costs, and wondered if that was attributable partially to some of the streamlining you guys have been trying to do. I know this year has been a troubling year, but in terms of, you know, refining things before they get to the AG's office, providing them with more information, so it costs us our staff time and less on their side.
You know, I'd absolutely love to say yes and take all the credit for that, but unfortunately, no, I don't think that's what the thing is. I think there's probably a small portion of that we're saving time, but a lot of the cases that are currently at the AG's office were transmitted way before I even came to the board. And so I don't think that a lot of those cost savings are being realized. What I think that most of the cost savings are attributed to is COVID and the fact that a lot of the petition hearings were, well, for the most part, for the fiscal year, were continued. And then once it got later into the year, then we started doing virtual hearings for some of them. But I think that that's what really the cost savings was, is that we had to push a lot of hearings off, and hearings are very, very costly.
Well, and I would say, since you're on this page, Jessica, that if you'll look at your travel cost savings, that's been a very helpful line item on your budget, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Christina has a question.
I was just...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
To me with COVID. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. With the facilities costs going up, is that just because we're adding the ability for people to work from home and having to maintain the facilities at the same time?
So the facilities will never change because we're locked into a lease, and so it's built in for the budget every year. And sometimes when we sign the lease, it has incremental increases that it's not going to be shown in the budget stone and what it's budgeted for. And so it's never a huge concern unless there's a huge deficit, then that's something to evaluate. But as far as COVID and people working from home, that's not impacting the staff the office that we're still paying rent on. So just because our staff aren't physically in the building, we're still paying for the size of the building. But what I can say is, as part of the budget change proposal that we got for enforcement, the 6 positions that we were afforded, part of that also included some construction costs within our office, where we were changing. A lot of people haven't been into our office, but we have 2 file rooms, and so we were working on and moving some of those files into the licensing room, and then sending some of the files off to state archives, and then reconstructing that to fit the 6 positions that we have. But because of COVID and because a lot of us are not coming into the office, we decided to not do that, and instead use those funds to reallocate them to pay for another management position and a management position and an office technician for probation. So we're definitely looking at reallocating that money that we were granted for the facility, and then those staff are going to work on sharing office spaces because we're not all here all at the same time.
Great, thank you. Moderator, I'd like you to open it up to public questions or comments on agenda item, is it 16A? I'm losing track. Yeah, thank you.
All right. This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the screen for your reference. And in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you. So we'll move on to agenda item 16B, which is Tim's examination report. Members of the board, do you have any questions or comments on this report?
It looks like you were muted when you were speaking.
Sorry, Christina, you're up. I see your hand up, but I'm having a hard time with my screen.
It's just a way of me like staying engaged, just to ask questions each time. I do apologize for dragging things on. My biggest thing was just the schools, alternate route schools, and the reports. Some of them that are in terms of pass, fail. Some of them that are just continuously having really high fail rates. And is there something that is there some action that we're going to take regarding that now that we are starting to get this information? And so that was the only question I had on this.
I think Jennifer has the same question. I see her look. Right, Jennifer?
Moderator, would you mind sharing presenter roles so I can show everybody what we're referring to? Thank you. Okay, so these are what we're referring to, and so you see, well, and first of all, a lot of them, they're low amounts that are testing, but what we can do is staff can flag this and we can research it to see what the potential causes are and what any action, if any, that we can take on this.
I remember that this Nancy reminded us last year that they lose their accreditation if they have a certain, if they fall below a certain percentage of pass.
Yeah, so it's something that we're flagging. I think we brought it up, I want to say the last meeting. There's an issue with the wording and the amount of data that we can get, because it was something to the effect of the pass rate for the last 2 years. And
one exam. I think it's based on several exams.
Right, it's multiple exams, but the data that we have doesn't match the requirement that we can audit, and so we have to figure out how to get the data to match so we can flag them. So it's something that we're looking into, but we just haven't been able to address it yet.
That's correct. We're looking for the California average pass rate for the past 2 years that we have to then compare to the pass rates of all the schools in California.
That's exactly what it was.
Thank you, Tim.
This is Kathy. The one thing I noticed, I mean, and it seems to be consistent over the years, there's certain schools that have very low pass rates. disturbingly low, it seems to me, if I was spending the money to go there. But I'm not sure what we have, what avenues we have. Jennifer, you're probably more well-versed in this than anyone else, but it just surprised me.
Part of this was getting the scores published, and I know Jessica said we're working on that because that's not easy to do. And then I do want to point out these are only the alternate route pass rates. Some of these schools have a regular program with much higher pass rates, and I can just tell you one example. I have a friend who I went through the RVT program with in the 90s, and she never finished, and she's now this year trying to go back. So there are all different types of alternate route students, and we don't know exactly what the issues are, but a lot of this is just getting the pass rates and getting the data.
And I apologize. I forgot that this was alternate, so I apologize.
And this is something that once we have the direct transfer of scores to us, we should be able to clearly report to you in the future.
Okay, any other questions then on this report before I open it up to the public? Moderator, would you please open this up for public comment or questions?
All right, at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A panel for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the screen for your reference. And in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please click I would like to make a comment and send to all panelists. It looks like we do have one request for public comment, so I'll go ahead and pull up that individual identified as Nancy Erlike. Nancy, I'll be unmuting your microphone now.
Okay, here I am. Of course, I was going to point out that these were alternate route programs, not approved programs, and so therefore these programs are not held to any standard at this point. My question really is, we have a regulation going through that will approve alternate route programs by 2024, and I'm not clear of what's happening with that regulation and if there are any standards that have been set for approving alternate route programs at this point. That's it.
I believe we do have some guidelines established in our regulations of what we need to review when determining the approval process for a alternate route program to become board approved, but we are still working on definitive guidelines.
And also, as a reminder, when we did the emergency fee increase, we added the ability to charge for those approvals, which we didn't have before. So I think that it's still in the process, and that rulemaking package that you're referring to, Nancy, is still going through the process.
All right,
that's somewhere on that regulatory map, the one that uses the teacher trains. Is that somewhere on that map?
It is. I don't have it up in front of me, but it is on the tracking.
So, moderator, any other comments from the public at this time?
This is the moderator. It looks like at this moment there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yeah, thank you.
Q&A panel is now closed.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 16C, which is the licensing report. Board members, do you have any questions about the licensing report? Moderator, would you open this up for public questions or comments, item 16C?
Jamie, I did have a question. I'm sorry, I raised my little hand.
I missed your hand, sorry.
No, my little hand, sorry. They should make these little hands color, like red or blue. It was just more of a question for Tim and the staff. And it may be COVID related, but I was just interested in the decrease, so it's good we have 38% more RVT applications, 92% more VA-CSP, but the university licensure apps were down 40%, it says, and licensed premises down 29%. And I just wondered what they thought that reasoning was. I know we haven't finished doing all the university licensures. Is it more, and is the premises thing relevant to COVID at all? People aren't opening practices or whatever. I just didn't know if anybody had any ideas about that.
For the university, what's impacted us or the applicants has been COVID, the social security number requirement for licensure. Being unable to get that prevents them from obtaining the license. So that's kind of been the slowdown on that. As for the premises, I believe most of the premises renew in May. So it's kind of a trickle in after that for the newer premises.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other. Oh, Christina?
I just wanted to quickly let you guys know that I just went through this whole process, and I wanted to commend the updates that have been made in the system on Breeze, because I felt like, particularly the fingerprinting thing, I followed the instructions very clearly, and I felt like they were very clear. And honestly, if I didn't have those instructions, I would have filled out the form incorrectly, and I probably would have messed it up. But I just wanted to thank you guys for putting that out there. I think that it is pretty easy to follow and very helpful. And so I'm hoping that that does. I know that some people are still having problems, but and I, of course, know that this is a problem, so I'm more keenly aware of it subconsciously as I'm working through the process, but it really was very helpful, and I just want to thank you.
Okay, great. Moderator, would you open 16C for public comment or question? I think, moderator, you're not coming through verbally. Moderator, there we go.
Just as a co-moderator, I'm taking care of business here. Please, I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty. I'll be right back.
So I'm going to jump in and ask that we're running out of time, honestly, and so I would ask that let's press on and not open it to public comment until the end. And members of the board, please address items number D through G. If you have any questions on items D through G, let's talk about those right now.
Members, since G did not have any documents to discuss, I just wanted to give a quick update on what we're doing on outreach. So one of the outreach goals was to revamp the website to make it more reader-friendly and provide timely updates on that. And so last month, Jennifer Loredo and I met with OIS to explore all of our options to redesign the website. And so Jennifer gave great feedback. We're able to put that in the works, so that's in the process. We hope to have that within the next few months, have the updates live. Another thing that we did, one of the goals was to create customer service satisfaction surveys for each unit. We have done that as well, and they are now being fully utilized. We have a low response rate because it's brand new, but right now our managers are working on ways to get those surveys out to get more feedback. And then another thing that we're doing, one of the draft objectives for outreach was to have more outreach with AAVSB, and we have been doing that too. I know that a lot of you participated in the AAVSB meetings. I think it was great that everybody and our MDC members were able to participate in that. Also, we had our own executive director session. After all of the AABSB meetings, we had a full day of just the executive directors of all of 62 jurisdictions. That went very well. We were able to share parts of some frustration that we're having with streamlining the process, and especially when it comes to getting license verifications from other states. There are some states that still require paper their letters of verification to be sent through the mail. We are with most of the boards who accept electronic means. There's just some who are very adamant that they need paper. There's also some boards who are still interviewing every single applicant that they have, and they're interviewing them during a board meeting instead of delegating that to the executive officer and the staff to approve. So as you can imagine, that has a big slowdown. And we also talked about the automatic data transfer that California is piloting with AABSB to streamline the data sharing. We're sharing our licensing information, our disciplinary information with AABSB, and then they are then going to share the scores right into our database. Once we finalize all of that, then they are moving it out to all of the states. And so that's going to really streamline the process. And we really feel it's a big consumer protection win for us too, because we're going to be getting that timely information about discipline in other states. So that was all I wanted to say for outreach. Sorry. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So again, questions from the board on items D through G. Okay, moderator, please open up for public comment or questions on items 16C through G.
Okay, it sounds like that the moderator is still having issues opening up for public comment. What I could suggest is, because we are able to see the attendees list, and when they raise their hands, if there are some, but we can't unmute them. I don't know if the moderator is able to unmute. 1 second. Perhaps we can start agenda item 17 and then open it back up.
17, and we can circle back. So item 17 is the election of the 2021 board officers. And I would like to start off by saying I've really appreciated having a chance to serve as your president. And I thank you for your participation this year and for your vote of confidence. I would like to take a moment to actually nominate Kathy Bowler to consider the presidency. I think she's been a fantastic vice president, and it tends to be the tradition that we have some continuity of leadership. So I was going to nominate Kathy, but I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Jamie, so much. I really thank you for the nomination. I really appreciate it. And I really love serving on this board. It's kind of a combination of my love of animals, devotion to animals, respect for public service, the profession, and consumer protection. And I've really enjoyed being vice president. But I've had a couple of things come up that I am concerned on time constraints that may not allow me enough time. I've watched how much time it has taken you, and this last year particularly, but the last 2 years, but this year was 6+ meetings. And I am concerned a little bit about taking on the job. I'd love to be president, be very honored to be, especially as a public member, but I'm concerned about taking that on right now because of the next 6 months. I'm not quite sure all my time constraints. So I really would, unfortunately, I would love to continue to serve as vice president if the board is interested. But I really think I need to decline right now to be president. But I'm really honored that you nominated me. Thank you. And I love working with the board and the staff.
Well, thank you. And I, again, appreciate all the hard work, and you've put in a tremendous amount of time and energy as well as vice president. Having said that, I would like to open it up for other nominations, and it looks like Christina has her hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie, for all of your service, and Kathy. And I agree. I think you would have made a great president, Kathy, and I completely understand. You want to do a great job. Someone who I think will do a great job and has been a great mentor to me, and I think would really be wonderful in this position again is Mark Nunez. So I'd like to nominate Mark Nunez, Dr. Mark Nunez, as our president.
I would like to second that nomination and turn it over to Mark. Mark, would you be willing?
I would first of all like to say, Jamie, you did a fantastic job as president. You were the first board chair president to have to deal with these virtual meetings, which none of us ever had to do. You did a fantastic job. I agree that Kathy would have been an excellent president. I was hoping to the last minute she would still reconsider her decision, but as number third choice, then yes. They're not really number third choice, but I'm honored that my fellow board members would consider me to serve as chair, and I accept the nomination.
Great, thank you. Any other nominations for the office of president?
I'll have to give you a little bit of full disclosure, though. My term officially ends in June. There is grace periods that may be considered by the people that do the appointments, but I may not be able to officially finish the term.
Yes, we have thought of that, but I personally, the reason why I seconded the nomination is I think that's a bridge we can cross if we come to it, and you have a 1-year grace period that most likely could be used. So I'm hoping in this day and age that would be considered acceptable, that the president wouldn't be removed in the middle of a term. But again, there are no guarantees.
We should be fine, but that's just.
Yeah. Well, and I would hope. I know that I think that if we were to choose Kathy as vice president, there would be some continuity there, and I think that would be would be wise if that was if that did happen. So
she will remain a heartbeat away from the president.
Any other nominations for president then? So I don't think, do we need to vote on it if it's the one nomination?
Yeah, so we still need to take public comment and then for this nomination, and then we can vote.
Are we able to take public comment on anything at this point? I guess that's my first question. Moderator, is there an ability to take public comment?
Apologies, this is the moderator. I was hoping the DAG get connected, and I should be able to open up public comment now. So members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment on agenda item, 16 and 17,
yes.
Please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And in the ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, please type, I would like to make a comment, and send to all panelists. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A panel.
Now, will there be mail-in ballots for this election?
Every vote counts.
Is it going to be rigged?
Be careful of what you agree to, Mark.
We have the mute buttons before the presidential candidates did.
All right, this is the moderator. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like us to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
That Q&A panel is now closed.
Okay, I'd like to call for the vote on the nomination of Mark Nunez as president.
Ms. Bowler.
Aye.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Ms. Loredo.
Yes.
Dr. Nunez.
Yes.
Ms. Prado,
Yes.
Dr. Solocito,
Yes.
Ms. Yanez is absent. Dr. Noland.
An eager yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Okay. So that brings us to the next item, which is to elect a vice president. And again, I'm going to step forward in the interest of time and ask to nominate Kathy Bowler to continue to serve as vice president.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Christina. Any other further nominations or discussion? Okay. Moderator, please open up for public comment on the nomination of Kathy Bowler as Vice President.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please click on that icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. Currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference, and in the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, please type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. And I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A feature. All right, this is the moderator. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Q&A panel is now closed.
Okay, I'd like to call for the vote on the nomination.
Yes. Ms. Bowler.
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Ms. Loredo.
Yes.
Dr. Nunez.
Yes.
Ms. Prado.
Yes.
Dr. Solocito.
Yes.
Ms. Yanez is absent. Dr. Noland.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations, Kathy.
Yes. Congratulations, both Mark and Kathy. We are running a little bit late, so I do think in the interest of time, Jessica, can we address agenda item 18 quickly?
Yes, I have already sent out all of the board meeting dates for the board members, and everybody has stated that they are have no conflicts. I apologize, I actually don't have them up right now, but I can send them out as reminders and set up invites for everybody. And also, just to let everybody know too, it looks like we do have the judge, the ALJ, and our DAG representative with us, but it looks like we do not have our petitioner or court reporter. We're working on getting them now, so perhaps we could take a 15-minute break and try to get them online.
We need to discuss future agenda items.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. Sorry. Yeah.
So, board members, any future agenda items that you would like to make sure we put on subsequent agendas? Kathy? And
sorry.
Kathy, and then Christina.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Jessica, I know there was a light discussion about probation, supervision, and things like that, and you touched on it in the report and also, I think, spoken about it. Did you want us to consider a subcommittee of board members to perhaps help you work on possible alternatives, or would that be helpful? That's the one thing I thought to just discuss January.
Actually, what might be really helpful if I could have two licensees help me with that. There's a form that I want to create and bring to the board in January. So if there's 2 members who are able to help me with that, that would be fantastic.
They need to be licensees, right? So none of us public.
Yeah, for the level of expertise I need, I think it would be more helpful if I have 2 licensees.
I don't hear any voices, and I'm not seeing any head nods or any other.
There's still the president.
And I'm being very quiet, and I'm seeing Nunez because we've got our plate full with the license exam changes that we're going to do.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with the inspection MDC thing. I wouldn't be surprised if I think everybody else is already kind of booked on that, so I don't want to commit to more than I can do well, but if there's not as narrow of a timeline, I would be happy to help.
Well, in the interim, Dr. Salacito is waving her hand at me. I'm
a little hesitant because I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but
I'll serve with her then and serve as a mentor to help her. Really.
There you go. You have a comrade in arms. So Dr. Nunez and Dr. Salacito, I think we have a subcommittee that is hereby appointed.
Thank you. And I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. I just need to a few questions that I think you guys can help me answer.
Okay. Okay. So Kathy, did you have more, or no, Christina then?
Yeah, I had 2 things. One was that I just wanted to follow up on the discussion about the shelter stuff, and I know we've beat this to death, but still Jennifer made some good points, and I didn't know if we wanted to put that on the agenda to discuss again. That was one thing. And then the other was at the comment, there were 2 individuals that spoke about in the workplace with patient to staff ratio and how they were feeling like there was I guess mainly they were words like corporate or people who were in charge were just.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but she keeps cutting in and out. Are you folks hearing her at all? Or, yeah, so Christina, we're having a really hard time hearing you. I want to try that again. Yes, a little bit.
No. Okay. Apologies. The first one was about the shelter stuff. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. The second was about there was some public comments at the last meeting, the July meeting, about patient to staff ratio in hospitals and the concern that the patients weren't being cared for appropriately. And there was that asked us if we could take a look at that. Did that come through?
Yes, I heard that. Jessica, do you want to address that, or do you want me to?
I think the only thing that I would be a little concerned about is our purview. We don't really get involved in patient to staff specific issues. So, I mean, but it's up to the board. You just approved the strategic plan with a lot of issues to address, and all of those issues will be coming to the board. So it's up to the board what their priorities are. So if they want to, one, rehash the whole shelter medicine thing and bring that back to the board, that's up to you. And then also, if you want to go into the patient staff ratio, if that's a priority, we just know that the other stuff that we're working on will take a back seat.
Yeah, I guess I made a comment, and then we basically have just not said anything else about it. And so I wanted them to feel like we heard them.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree. And I think it might be something that we could involve in the discussion coming up of our sunset review. I do think, though, that coming up in the next meeting, sunset review has to really take a forward position, because I think it's going to hit us pretty quickly. And I think that agenda items right now that we can subsection under that might be worthwhile. That would be my suggestion. So I think we have a lot of work coming up in the next 2 months with sunset review, and I think that needs to really take care of it.
And this is Kathy. I kind of agree. I'm not sure about our jurisdiction in that, but maybe that's something that the MDC, I know they have a lot on their plate, but could potentially take a look at too.
And this is on their list. You guys asked them to take a look at it as well. But it's not on the top of their list. So they have quite a bit of things that they're working on. So it hasn't fallen off. We just haven't been able to get to it yet.
Okay, any other items that the other board members feel are important to put on a future agenda? Okay, can we get an update on how we're doing with the petitioner?
He is trying to log on right now.
Okay. We should go ahead and take a break.
I'm so sorry. Can we open it up to public comment first on that agenda item and then take a 10-minute break?
Okay, absolutely. So, moderator, would you open up for public comment to item number 18, future agenda items?
On mute. They're asking I can do public comment. Apologies. Trying to get our petitioner connected, but I can't open up for public comment. All right, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow members of the public time to access that Q&A panel. All right, it looks like we do have one individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Anita Levy. Anita, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Wonderful, thank you. I wanted to mention, I would love, you guys touched on it briefly, I would love to see more discussion around the idea of having badges that identify credentials and patient ratios. I mean, that's something that in human medicine, it's very commonly practiced in that manner. And I know that we have a lot of issues and discussions with title protection. It's one of the big sore spots for a lot of RVTs in California because we don't really have a good mechanism to handle that if there are infractions, which of course there are a bunch of. But that would be one way indirectly that solution could be handled, thereby saving hopefully a ton of time and money, not needing to go to the legislature to change anything. So I just wanted to add that that would be very interesting, and I would love to see that there.
Did you say badges and patient ratios?
Yes, badges that would, just similar to how they are in human nursing, human medicine, where it identifies in large letters what your title is, yes. CNA, RN, yeah. And then also patient ratios for staff. I mean, that's something that's commonly done in many different facets of human medical health care. And I think it would definitely lend to patient safety and consumer protection if we had those in place.
You mean how much staff do you required for a particular patient load.
Exactly. And that's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the board members in your new positions. Look forward to continuing to be part of and observe what you guys are doing.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
All right, this is the moderator. It looks like there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you. So I believe we need a 5-minute break. Would it be possible a 5-minute break and reconvene at 11:20? Okay.
All right, this is the moderator. In the meantime, it looks like we were able to get our petitioner online. I'll do a mic check with him while you are all on break. And then we'll also work on getting our court reporter online. Thank you. All right, and then
Perfect.
Dr. Cotton,
Thank
are you
you.
able to unmute your microphone to give me a quick mic check? Dr. Cotton, if you're currently speaking, unfortunately I cannot hear you. If you can hear me right now, I'm going to hang up on the phone in case that's causing issues with the audio connection. So Dr. Cotton, are you able to locate that microphone icon at the bottom of your WebEx session and then click that mute button? When it's green, that means you're unmuted and that you can speak.